thank you very much for agreeing to both speak as well as to interact, and particularly for the benefit of the students, because we have crowdsourced some of the questions from the students themselves, so that your messages can go down to the ground level. Given 52 years of professional at the top, managing, first starting with a public sector enterprise, managing the transition from a public sector enterprise to one of the best private corporate conglomerate in the country, managing global or multilateral development financial institutions, managing pure private sector IT companies such as chairman, and coming back again to development financial institution. So your life journey itself is, as the chairperson has told, a lesson for the great teachers. What are the messages you would like to tell the young graduating students today?
Yeah, I think this is a very comprehensive question. I'll try to answer that. Clearly, in the first, I would say, 17, 18 years, were learning from masters. I learned from two masters. My first boss in ICICI was Mr. Nadkarni, who was later chair of SEBI, if I am not mistaken, in the 90s. So with him, under him, I learned probably most of what I learned. And thereafter, I had the occasion to work under another master, Mr. Wagul, from 85 to 88. Again, my continuing learning process was kept alive, as it were. They were different sort of teachers. Both were exceptionally brilliant, so I had to learn to keep pace with them. But the style was different. I think both were entrepreneurial. You picked the best from both of them as I went along. Thereafter, my 8 years at ADB was learning what was happening in Southeast Asia. So I spent my time basically trying to understand how change happens in countries. How do you go from a developing economy to maybe a developed economy, or transit through that stage, which I could use when I came back to ICICI. But the key in the whole process of transformation of ICICI was people. And that was not something I put on the table. That was put on the table by my seniors before me. So there was a core of people that were available, and we had to then work on that or mold that core to deliver. And that core had to be set in a new direction, as it were, given leadership roles very early in their career. So it was not untypical to have people just about 32, 33 at a level just below the board. So the board had 3 executive directors, but the next layer was a young layer of leadership. And people who did not have a particular skill were encouraged to pick up those skills. As chairperson has said, then boss clearly told her that you need to learn technology, and you need to run technology. And indeed, she ran technology thereafter, virtually for the bank. So I always think of her as a technology person, front office person, a brand building person, a person who did, operations for the bank, and almost every single, and drove business for the bank. Every single area that was in the bank was run. And we got insights into every single area by young people in their 30s, early 30s, as it were. So big learning for me was power of youth. Rely on that, empower them, and in a way, let them be entrepreneurial, and things happen. So that part of the journey was an entrepreneurial journey, as it were. Again, a challenge was the merger of the parent ICICI with the bank, and then becoming the bank. I won't go into that, but that itself was a great challenge. And in between, we all at ICICI got the brush with technology, real technology. When you put technology into the bank, and then we said that we will roll out 1,000 ATMs in 1 year, and there are maybe 100 ATMs in the country. And virtually everybody in the bank said that, no, nobody will use an ATM. But it was people in the parent company who said, who did research, who did a lot of work, a lot of it led by Mrs. Butch here, who said it can be done. People are going to change. People need convenience. People are willing to, make amends if they could have convenience rather than a brand and so on. Of course, a lot of learnings that we put into our thing. But the key element was technology. So we owned technology in a way as we grew. So then I think then it was a question of scaling new businesses as we got along. Infosys, my role was just as the chair of the board. I was not into running anything. The experience at Bricks Bank was interesting because you were learning to handle 5 different people from 5 different countries, their own cultures, their mindsets, and some of them are, democratic governments, some aren't, and you have to learn to work with the system as it is given to you and run. So it was a great learning experience to maybe build my own knowledge and abilities to handle with the multiculture. So I think it's been a great experience. And the last few years, in accelerating India to grow with that again. And today, not the positions that I am holding, today, again, the role of technology has suddenly gone to a level where, as I said, I'm quite confident that 5 to 7% contribution to GDP by digital is going to go to 25 to 30% very soon. So it's going to be an exciting place to be.
Thank you, sir. You have underscored the importance of a core leadership team for the success of every organization. In that context, there is a question. The type of employees or leaders which used to be there in the organizations earlier, who would dedicate their full lifetime for basically the same organization, we are witnessing increasingly a question of something like temporariness, where people shift plus attrition rates are very high. Given these new challenges, how do you reimagine the HR strategy of modern companies facing these challenges? And what should be the current generation, the young generation, how should they address themselves to face these new realities?
I think, again, an excellent question. This was visible to us at ICSA very early, maybe 25 years back, or definitely 20 years back. And the most churn was happening in the Treasury Department, where, lasting 2 to 3 years was difficult. They always had an opportunity and then they went out. And then we saw that happening even in the branch, front office of the branch, or the front office of the bank, as it were, which is a branch, happening there. And then, of course, it pervaded through. And now I was talking to somebody the other day, some banks with attrition rates of 49%. And there are other banks, leading banks, between 25 to that number. So I think it has become a way of life. And my view is that there's no point in managements fighting this. And it is not, I don't think there's much downside for the young person who is doing this, because this is the nature of work that is there today. And the person is just riding that curve and progressing on the career path. As long as that happens, I'm very happy. You should look after your interests. The organization will figure out how to look after its interests. And how does that happen? Because it has to happen. It doesn't happen by chance. The organization then has to make sure that it keeps buffers for filling in these slots and allowing for growth, giving them proper training, and so on. So again, a sideline on this. This has happened going back 20 years in the case of Infosys. Infosys had large training campuses, each one taking about 10,000 students at each intake. So the Mysore campus has 10,000 single rooms where 10,000 young people can come in and get trained. And the typical training program was about 4 months. So you had 3 rounds of that. So 30,000 people actually stayed on campus and graduated. At that time, Infosys had about 150,000 staff. So you had 30,000 here and then in some other campuses. So totally about 50,000 people were trained to allow for growth and attrition, both. So this is part of the process. You build that in as a cost in terms of money and a cost also in terms of skill. And then you grow the teams as you go along. So I think this cannot be fought. You can provide better conditions, see what happens, provide greater growth opportunities, but you have to address it so that you don't fail, and wish your employee well as the employee leaves you, and hope that he carries memories or she carries memories where she or he is a brand ambassador for you.
Sir, you also emphasize the importance of being abreast with the technological developments and reskilling. Now you have given the example of Infosys with their gigantic training facilities in Mysore and other campuses. But that type of capabilities, I know you are a evergreen optimist. I mean, you will never tell anything. That is something which I have noticed about your personality. You will never be skeptical about anything. But still, some of the young generation is a little bit skeptical about the emergence of frontier technology like artificial intelligence on employment, and also the possibility of reskilling and continuous skilling on an accelerated pace, because the technology is running away. And in that context, do you think the challenges which we are facing, like in the form of human intelligence and artificial intelligence, will end up with in a sort of a harmonious jugalbandi, or in a sort of explosive cacophony type of relationship?
No, I'll keep the AI and other part of it aside for a moment. I'll come back to it and link it up. But the basic technology skills, I think, are required for survival today. If you don't do it, somebody is going to do it better, as Ms. Bush's boss that time, Nachiket, told her. And just continuing that, Nachiket then made it a requirement that anybody who entered Treasury had to do a certification course in Java. In talking of and calculus, we're talking of 25, 27 years back. But that was part of the prerequisite for entering ICICI into the Treasury function. And today, your organization will tell you that you need to have a basic understanding of how you build with open source. How do you play with R? How do you play with Python? And or anything newer and simpler maybe, or more complex. But without that, somebody else is going to do that, and you're going to find difficult. You have asked a larger question. Well, basically, I'll paraphrase it. The question to me is, will AI and other developments make the way we work different? I think it will, for sure. Will it pose an employment challenge? I'm not very sure. But the same question was raised, 30, 40 years back, whether you use, the phrase was computerization in banks, and what happens to jobs. Nothing has happened to jobs. So jobs have increased, and actually, and the whole thing has become wider and wider. So I would think the requirement of the skill will change, but nothing specific will change in what you do. So I think this class and several classes to follow, I don't think are going to have any challenge from AI. But if you have got a young child today entering college, and the child says that I don't want to do engineering, I want to do something else, then I think you owe it to that child, owe it to yourself to listen to that child, and you also owe it to that child to decide what it wants to do. Because there may be other occupations, the child is picking up the signals well in advance, which probably are going to be occupations of the future, and wants to go along those lines. So other day I came across a phrase, so the child wants to do art and architecture. And then the phrase came experience architecture. So I went into what is experience architecture. Experience architecture is basically understanding, say, the user interface that is there, the user experience that is there, and not just leaving it at that. Going back to the basic workbook and trying to do design thinking as to how do you start, what is the end use, and what are the components there, and what all you have to think about it. So today, in a classical technology program, this is not taught, but it's taught somewhere else in as an arts program and things like that. So we will have to allow children to feel their way around, and parents and the younger people who are not yet parents will also have to think about how these things are going to impact them and learn. It's not tough. If you have done this course, nothing is tough for you.
Sir, you have supervised during your more than 50 years of senior management and at the top level, supervised thousands of employees at different levels and interacted with many more thousands. one of the questions which our students had asked us to find out is, how can they become, their ideal is you, for instance. How can they become like you? Well, my own answer to that, it's an impossibly difficult task. But still, what would be an ideal finance professional in the current times and going forward, sir?
No, it's a very simple answer, actually. I think hard work is the key prerequisite. Keeping an open mind is the second prerequisite. Continuous learning is the third prerequisite. That is, I'm putting it on myself. Not necessarily in your own area. Learn from anything around you. Be curious, and you will then connect the dots, is a clear thing. Try to inculcate that in your people who you work with, or course of time, people you are basically there's a set of people who are responsible to you. You spread this knowledge so that you make it into a knowledge society, and thereafter, I think there'll be a time when you will start learning from your colleagues who are junior to you, and at that point in time, do not stop that learning, because probably the greatest learning happens when you learn from your colleagues. You listen to them. You may challenge them, but hear them out. And I would say 9 out of 10 times, what they say probably is the right way to go. And you are slightly outdated, and then you get corrected and come on this. You do that, you're going to remain young through the next 50 years of your career, as it were.
Sir, one last question, which is not, it's a policy question. You have been at the top of development financial institution, as I told, both multilateral and now domestic. But there is a lot of skepticism also about the role of particularly multilateral development financial institutions, which is of late being discussed. What are your views on the future of MDBs?
Yeah, see, again, you have to look at the MDBs as institutions which not only serve countries at today's India level, but served India of the 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s, even 90s. When ICICI was born in the 50s, there was IDBI, IFCI. And we had, in those years, about 20 lines of credit from the World Bank. There was no domestic funding available. There is a large part of the world which is exactly in that situation today, which is probably 60 to 70 years behind India. And clearly there is a role for these MDBs to provide assistance, a helping hand, and allow helping hand through the process of growth and emerging into a different, I would say, level of per capita income and so on. What we hear today is that these have become insulated boxes where not enough is being done. So, for example, one of the things at the G20, there was a panel, there was a leadership team that was built under Dr. N.K. Singh here, one of our own leaders, and Larry Summers, which is looking at how could they put their capital to better use. Now, we have done this exercise in the NDB, and we had end state $10 billion of capital. We said in a steady context, if you go by what the rating agencies tell you, you will run out of capital at around lending of between 45 to 50 billion. That's it that you could do. And then you'll have to ask for more capital. But if you are a little more innovative, you could probably take it to about 2.5 to 3 times that number. So what is the innovation that is required in this? At one level, at the very simplest level, for example, rating agencies say that for a development bank, you should have at least 1 year's liquid money sense. So you are not lending that. So you have to hold it as cash. Now my point is, if you can get to the market and raise money in 1 month maximum, and today it was self-registering for a long time, why do you need to hold that sort of liquidity? Yeah, you put a reasonable number. But they say you don't hold that liquidity, we will notch you down from AAA to AA. So the answer is, so what? Notch me down. I won't fight for the AAA. You think that I'm not being good enough or listening to you, notch me down. So what is the penalty that I pay? I probably pay a 10 to 15 basis penalty, if at all, 15 basis points penalty or higher cost. But I will get the funding that I want, and I can probably lend twice the number. One is on liquidity. The second is on leverage. So two put together should get you about 2 times to 2.5 times about doing nothing else and paying a 15 bips penalty to the market. Nothing has changed. And you could very easily save that by being more efficient. So, so this is what actually I had a discussion with the team there and said, this is what is possible. And I was told that World Bank doesn't buy it. I said, I know a priori that they won't buy it, but task is to convince them to buy it. So I think this is the thing, a very simple thing. They have capital. They have been always saying that we have run out of capital. Effective use of the capital, they could lend another 2x with what they have, and some dialogue is required with the rating agencies because there's no regulator in the picture. So rating agency and there's a market. The market is very clear. I'll notch you, if you notch down, I'll give you, money 15 bips lower. So you tell the rating agency, go ahead and notch me down. So this is the sort of, I would think, hopefully they have a leader now who understands markets, who has come from the markets, who's come from the banking side, and puts it on a different level.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm sure by talking on your own life experience, the students have got their message loud and clear. And I am sure they have been earnestly listening to you and use these messages of wisdom in their future endeavor. Thank you very much.
Thank you.